The day after seeing WW644 in Hamilton, I went up to Auckland again to meet some of my old mates from school, as well as revisit the tram line in Wynyard Quarter. This 1.5 kilometre long loop of track opened in 2011, and it's the only reason why I ever go to this part of Auckland. Apparently it was due to close in April 2023, but the closure has been delayed until at least the end of 2024. A housing development is going to be built on the site of the tram shed, and the trams themselves will move to Western Springs. As I've seen a few times before, the only tram in operation was X1 class number 466, not to be confused with the class 466 networker, and originally built in 1926 for service in Melbourne, Australia.
Yeah, so that.
For various reasons, it took a fair while before we finally went for a ride on the X1.
What do you reckon?
Now it was finally time to ride on the tram, with the motorman giving a live commentary about the area as we went around the loop.
Well, we've got another story to share as we trundle around the loop. Leaving us now, remember, your tram ticket's good forward. The Dockline Tram. Well, it's hard to believe as you look around this area today that this used to be the industrial centre for Auckland. Now our newest inner city suburb that we call Wynyard Quarter. That's named after Wynyard Wharf, which is the wharf that goes straight out there on the left. Jellicoe Street here is the restaurant heart of the quarter, with restaurants and cafes both sides of the street. On the left-hand side, all the restaurants are sitting on North Wharf, our only north-facing wharf here in Auckland. And of course every wharf has a wharf shed. North Wharf, no exception. Our wharf shed's just here on the left with the red doors, built in 1926. The same year this tram was built. Today the old wharf shed is home to the Wynyard Pavilion restaurant. As the weather warms up today, you might fancy an ice cream a little bit later. Then why not pop into Gelatiamo just here on the left, famous for that beautiful gelato ice cream. And as we turn the corner into our next tram stop in Halsey Street, on our left is Karanga Plaza, the Welcome Plaza. Through the trees you might be able to spot the footbridge over which you can walk to the Maritime Museum or downtown Auckland, a walk of about 20 minutes. On our left is the beautiful Park Hyatt Hotel with more stars than Hollywood. Well, ladies, welcome aboard the Dockline Tram as we do our 1.5 kilometre loop around Wynyard Quarter. When this area was first set up in the 1920s, it was set up to be the industrial home for Auckland. When the streets were put down, they were all named after old British men who had a background in the maritime industry. This is Halsey Street. It's named after Admiral Lionel Halsey, who commanded a battle cruiser during the First World War called HMS New Zealand. Admiral Halsey's claim to fame was that while he was in command of the ship, he never lost a single man, and nor did the ship suffer any serious damage, despite all the battles they fought. He was known to the crew as the Lucky Captain. Well, straight ahead of us, the trees you see there surround one of the oldest sporting grounds in Auckland. That, of course, is Victoria Park. What you might not know is that back in 1901, Victoria Park was a fishing lagoon for the Maori people. Victoria Street on the other side of the park was the actual beach or seafront. All the land we're on here now has been reclaimed from the sea. Now we're pulling into our next tram stop here in Gordon Street. Well, the land reclamation here started back in 1901 with Victoria Park completed first in 1905 and named after the late sovereign Queen Victoria. They then worked their way systematically northwards, in other words across to the right of us here, reclaiming the land from the sea in stages. The last piece of land to be reclaimed was 1929 to 1930. And so when you think about the fact that where we're sitting now was all part of Auckland Harbour, you'll understand why when these buildings on the left were built between 2014 and 2018, they had to go down some 30 metres to find solid rock to set the building foundations on. Well, coming up ahead of us is our next turn into Dalby Street and our next tram stop. Dalby Street's named after William C. Dalby, who was the very first chairman of the Auckland Harbour Board way back when Auckland became a city in its own right in 1871. William C. Dalby was also part of our very first city council, also formed that year, and as a city councillor he helped found the Auckland Fire Brigade Service. And coming into our next tram stop here in Dalby Street. Well, ladies, you aren't forgotten, because the park on the right hand side, when it was set up about 4 years ago, was named after William C. Dalby's wife, Amy Dalby. She was a loud and long campaigner for women's rights and the suffragette movement here in New Zealand, and I guess it's because of women like Amy Dalby that New Zealand was the first country in the world to give women the vote. Well, coming up on the left is our tram shed, which has been home to our 2 Dockline trams now for going on 11-12 years. Photograph on the outside wall of the tram shed was taken in 1956 at the tramway workshops in Royal Oak. You can see the workmen there stripping the wooden tram bodies of all the steelwork, mirrors, destination boxes, electrical equipment, and then the bodies were sold to become holiday homes, or batches as we call them, for people on the Thames coast and Coromandel. Today, if you go down and drive around the Coromandel and Thames coast, you'll see literally dozens and dozens of old Auckland tram bodies now serving a new life as holiday homes. proving that the tram bodies built in the 20s and 30s were far better built than many of today's modern homes. Did you want the tram? No? Right. Well, that was a simple answer, wasn't it? There on the left is our other tram in the fleet, also from Melbourne, Australia, built in 1943, and in service in Melbourne till 2015 when it was given to us. We've refurbished it, and like this tram you're riding in, painted it up in the colours that Auckland trams were painted in during the 1930s. This little tram you're riding in, built in Melbourne in 1926, service in Melbourne streets till 1961 when the Melbourne tramways decided to get rid of the last of these little four-wheeler trams that only seat 30 passengers and replace them with the much bigger trams. This little one came over here in 2011 to open this tramway, and she's been our workhorse ever since. Don't forget to check out the slides on the right hand side and that tower there, built to recreate the days of the oil tanks that used to sit on this land. And here on the left we've got the coffee club. If you fancy a light lunch or a cup of coffee, we've got some discount vouchers valid for today for the coffee club. If you see me as you hop off the tram, they're valid for today only. You can get the discount for today at the coffee club. The great big concrete silos on the left are the last remains of the Golden Bay Cement Company that was based down here when this was the industrial centre for Auckland. And those silos give this part of Wynyard Quarter its name, Silo Park. The big steel framework called the gantry gives you a great view of the top of the Harbour Bridge and the West Haven Marina. There's a children's playground right in front of the gantry. Well, if you're leaving us now, don't forget your tram ticket is good till 4 o'clock. If you're staying with us, we've got another story to share as we trundle around the loop.
We ended up doing a second lap, with the motorman kindly dropping us off at the bus stop next to the tram shed. And that way we wouldn't have to walk as far to have a butcher's at the SW6 that was now parked outside. (881) was built in 1943, which makes her 70 years old at the time of uploading. Like the little X1, the SW6 also came from Melbourne, and two of her classmates, numbers 893 and 906, are preserved over at Motat. However, 893 is still in her original livery, while, as you can clearly see, 881 has been repainted. Despite having been around the loop twice already, I got back on the X1 again simply to get more footage of her in action. And incidentally, I sometimes got the X1 confused with the S1, as in Pennsylvania Railroad 6446, number 6100.
imagine, it would have made the area very busy in the mornings and the afternoons. Lots of different trams heading out and arriving back on their services. So if you take a look out the left hand side of the windscreen here, you can see our tram shed at Dockline. And this is where our 2 trams are stored during the week and kept in beautiful condition to take you around on your weekend rides. Quite an interesting image on the end of the tram shed there. It's a little bit faded now. That actually depicts the end of the trams in Auckland from around about December of 1956. And it shows the workmen disassembling those decommissioned trams and taking off all of the metal parts, all the controls, the running gear underneath, everything that could be melted down and reused. From there, the wooden tram bodies would go on and to be reused as well. Many of them repurposed for batches and holiday homes, and some of them staying in Auckland and becoming sheds and greenhouses in people's backyards. Now I'll just go off my tangent here for just a second to point out the coffee club. Oh, that person cut the corner. Coffee club on the left-hand side of us. They've recently opened and they'd be very keen to have a whole lot more customers coming from the tram. So if you are interested in grabbing a coffee today, I'm happy to give you a 15% off voucher for your order. So just let me know when you jump off and I can give you one of those and you can pop down to the coffee club. Now beware any of you that might have been breaking the law. It looks like we have Batman coming on the tram in just a minute. So you better...
And with that, it was finally time to go and revisit the AM electric multiple units, but not before a short ride on a red battery electric bus with awful seats. I turned up at Britomart, I refused to use the station's new name, just in time to watch AM's 701 and 578 arriving on a service from Papakura. At the time of uploading, the service patterns in Auckland are pretty convoluted, unless you're on the North Auckland line east of Swanson, and it'll stay that way until January 2024. The only reason I got off at Papakura was in the hopes of getting a good roster shot of AM593, one of 6 units in special vinyl wrap liveries promoting rail safety. And after an annoyingly long wait at the nearby traffic lights, this was the result of my efforts. And here's some footage of AMs 185 and 593 from the same vantage point. After watching AMs 524 and 593 pass by, I went back to the station to wait for another service to Papakura. Just for the heck of it, here's a clip from November 2014, when there was still a pedestrian crossing at the northern end of Papakura station. Fortunately, AM 960 would be the unit I rode on to Papakura. This is the second newest unit in the class, as she would have been built in 2020.